Hey, Aaron Mack, BS Detector, back again. I think this is part 13. I accidentally just labeled the header of the video that I just uploaded of the last of chapter 4 that we were reading. I can never remember when these books get long and I'm reading like 20 part sections. I'm like, was that part 9 or part 10? But I think that was part 12 that I just uploaded. So this will be part 13. And it is one of the biggest tools of manipulation and social engineering that we have had to deal with as a society. And some people are so brainwashed by it, it's unbelievable to me. It is mind, it's brainwashing, it's mind control. And that is chapter 5, television. The slyest form of control is making people think they are free while having someone manipulate their every move. One form of dictatorship is being in a prison cell, seeing the bars. The other, a far more subtle form of control and dictatorship, is when you can't see the bars and you think you're free. And that's exactly what we are. We are free-range humans. We are not free, okay? And if you think you are, I don't know what to tell you. The biggest hypnotist in the world is an oblong box in the corner of the room that tells people what to believe. Yeah, aka a scrying mirror, aka a television. Television, with its reach into everyone's home, creates the basis for the mass brainwashing of citizens, as we shall see in this chapter. You may not realize it yet, but your mind is being shaped and molded every time you turn the one-eyed babysitter on. When you watch TV, the right hemisphere is twice as active as the left, which in itself is a neurological anomaly. Quote, the crossover from left to right releases a surge of the body's natural opiates, endorphins, which include beta endorphins and enkephalins. Endorphins are structurally identical to opium and its derivatives, morphine, codeine, heroin, etc. End quote. Holy shit, I had no idea. I don't really watch TV. I mean, I'll watch YouTube videos, like if I'm interested in a topic or something, but I'm not out here just endlessly watching Netflix or endlessly being like entertained. I'm always trying to learn something, which is why I can hardly have a conversation with anyone at work, because nobody really knows anything. And I sound like a crazy person to all my customers. I don't know how to talk about sports ball. I don't watch it, and I'm not interested in that. I don't, the newest series on HBO, but I don't know. I don't watch that shit. I don't know. So I am an odd bird in that respect, but I really don't care. I'm not trying to be entertained to death. I'm trying to shake people awake, which I don't even know if it's too late at this point, but we are all slaves. We are. So, television, with its reach into everyone's home, creates the basis for the mass brainwashing of citizens, as we shall see in this chapter. Okay, we already read that. When you watch TV, okay, we already read that. In other words, your television works as a high-tech drug delivery system, and we all feel its effects. Another effect of watching television is that the, quote, higher brain regions, such as the midbrain and the neocortex, are shut down, and most activity shifts to the limbic system, your lower brain region. The lower or reptile brain simply stands poised to react to the environment using deeply embedded, quote, fight or flight response programs. Moreover, these lower brain regions cannot distinguish reality from fabricated images, in parentheses, which is a job performed by the neocortex. So they react to television content as though it were real, releasing appropriate hormones and so on. Studies have proven that, in the long run, too much activity in the lower brain leads to atrophy in the higher brain regions. Now, you may not have known this, but I bet you the people who brainwash you on a daily basis surely did. Don't worry, we'll come back to that a bit later. For the brainwashers in charge of this societal transformation, they have pulled off the ultimate trick. They were able to persuade people that what they can see with their eyes is what's there to see. Subsequently, people will laugh in your face when you try to explain to them the bigger picture and the unseen reality behind the curtain, and that's facts. Because it has happened to me multiple times. And if they don't laugh, they try to play devil's advocate and argue me down just for the sake of arguing me down, and it's exhausting. In 1981, in a 1981 interview, Hal Becker from a think tank called, quote, Futures Group, end quote, in Connecticut said, quote, I know the secret of making the average American believe anything I want him to. Just let me control television. You put something on the television and it becomes reality. If the world outside the TV set contradicts the images, people start trying to change the world to make it like the TV set images. And that is facts too, bro. You see, television is not the truth. For as much as people keep tuning into its lies, television is an amusement park, a group of jugglers, belly dancers, storytellers, singers, and strippers. But people have been completely hypnotized by the tube. You sit there day after day, night after night. TV is all most of you know. 5% of Americans read more than 5 books per year, yet 1 billion people tune into the Oscar Awards. Pathetic. You dream like a tube, speak like a tube, smell, dress, act like your television. Most people feel they are better acquainted with Paris Hilton, Britney Spears, or Lady Gaga than with their own husband or wife. This is madness, don't you see? How many millions of you are prepared to believe anything the tube tells you? A lot. Probably except for you fine people here listening to me read this to you. You people have a desire to know what the F is really going on around here. Kudos to you. Break the spell of the television programming and come to the actual side of reality enjoyment, which actually is terrifying because reality is terrifying. That's why they have lulled us all into a dream state with the TV. Okay. What's more, huge numbers of people at the top are prepared to tell you anything in the name of, quote, war against terror. And here we are in another freaking war for the Zionist state of Israel, who hates us and who is behind all of this shit. I mean, they fucking hate you and they hate me. And they want to unalive all of us. And they're working very hard to do so. And the quicker you wake up to this fact, the better off we'll be. Which I don't even know if there's any hope now with their electronic weapons. Their silent weapons for quiet wars. We're being slowly cooked as it is already right this second. Okay. What's more, huge numbers of people at the top are prepared to tell you anything in the name of war against terror, audience share, and advertising dollars as long as you vote for them, buy their products, and allow them to brainwash you. Quote, television provided an ideal means to create a homogenous culture, a mass culture, through which popular opinion could be shaped and controlled so that everyone in the country would think the same, end quote, and all of y'all do. And I'm not talking directly to you, but I'm saying for the most part, everyone does think the same. And that's why I find it so difficult to literally talk to anyone, except for people that are not brainwashed, not completely brainwashed. People that still think for themselves. Like, I used to think that my current boss was a total nut job, but I was still brainwashed. Now, 10 years later, I think he's one of the most fascinating, intelligent guys that I've ever sat down and talked to. So, you know, there is hope yet. Okay. Why is it being done? To dumb you down, to brainwash you, to turn you into a touchy-feely adult with infantile tendencies. So you don't get in the way of important people by doing too much thinking on your own. Think about it. Over 75% of people get all their information from the television. In fact, the only truth most people know is what they get over the television. There is an entire generation of people who did not know anything that didn't come out of this tube. This tube has become the gospel, the ultimate revelation. It can make or break presidents and prime ministers. This tube is the most awesome force in this goddamn world. However, what would happen if it got into the hands of the wrong people? And when the largest company in the world controls the most awesome propaganda force in the entire universe, who knows what shit will be peddled for truth on the networks? This is why reading books is so important. You have got to maintain possession of your own mind, people. And you have to stay vigilant about it. Because these MFers don't sleep and they are plotting on us day and night. And this is not paranoia. This is fact. All right. We got a new header. The making of a fascist society. Most people think they have a pretty good idea about what fascist society is all about. They have seen the pictures and the made-for-TV movies of Nazi Germany in the 1930s, which was all propaganda, by the way. The crowds, the frenzy, the glitter, the jackbooted troops, the huge rallies, the waving of the flags. Then there were the speeches by Hitler made to the cheering approval of enormous crowds of people who raised their arms and salute at the beckoning of their Führer. Who can forget the terrifying images of Nazi thugs breaking windows and the Jewish ghetto pulling frail old ladies by their hair onto the streets? The Gestapo and the SS troops using the butt end of their machine gun to beat someone into a pulp. Why is it that we cannot read one of these books without having to hear about the poor Jays and the freaking Nazis? Like, I'm so sick of it. We all know it's bullshit at this point. Do we not? Then there are other images, the death camps and the horrified world that didn't know anything about them. They were not death camps. They were work camps. And yes, unfortunately, a couple 100,000 people died. A couple 100,000 people is not 6 million. And if you knew what they were trying to do to Germany, dare I say, they played a real fucked up game of fuck around and find out. And they fucked around and they found out. Okay. The bodies, the teeth, the bones, the walking dead, the hair and the golden teeth and the rings and the ovens. There were no ovens, okay? And I know I've said this before. There was a journalist that went over to Auschwitz. He did a forensic investigation. He came back. He wrote a book on it. There were no ovens. There were no locks on the doors. It was a work camp. People died of starvation and cold. And then what was done in return to like a couple million European Germans and whoever else was on their side, they were all left in a field to starve to death. And that actually did happen. So by the Brits and the Americans. The greatest generation of the 20th century went to war to defeat the greatest evil man has ever known. 26 million Soviets died in the war, plus millions of Europeans and 500,000 American soldiers. Never again. That's what we all said at once. That's what we all said once the war ended. Do you remember? The world will never tolerate such inhumanity again. To act like fascism is like literally the worst thing. Communism has killed more people than fascism wishes it ever could. The Bolshevik Revolution, 20 million Christians died, okay? You don't hear the Christians belly aching about that. No, because Zionist propaganda has kept you from finding out because you're so incensed in your boob tube that you can't pick up a book and learn something. We would never have another Hitler in our midst. Let me keep my mouth shut. Never would human rights be so flagrantly trampled on. Yes, you say, never again. Are you sure about that? What if I told you we let the monster back in and you, reader, are partially to blame? Would you believe me? Now take yourselves back to the victorious U.S. troops entering Baghdad and Kabul. Think back to the war with Libya. Yeah, what happened in Libya is totally fucked. Think back to the Operation Desert Storm. Do you remember the parades, the confetti, the ticker tape, the troops, and the very expensive equipment parading on television in front of the adoring masses waving flags? Does that sound familiar? That was for the Schmionists, okay? They are behind every stinking world war since World War I, people. And probably the French Revolution, the American Revolution, they were probably behind all of it. But I know that definitely from when we read Facts Are Facts, the Jewish man told on his people and said that they were secretly behind World War I and World War II. And America wasn't even going to get involved in the war. But the Brits, for some reason, the Zionists wanted them to be involved. So, America got sucked into it. And now here we are. There are millions of people throughout the United States celebrating the great victory, waving the little plastic flags which were given out by the hundreds of thousands, the cheering approval of enormous crowds of people who raise their arms and salute at the beckoning of their president and the commanding general. Is it coming back now? I thought it might. Yes, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. Except, this time we really kicked the butts of the stinking Arabs, didn't we? Hi, Mom, we're number one. No, we didn't. We destroyed a bunch of countries that didn't have anything to do with us, that were also victims of propaganda and brainwashing at the hands of the Zionists. They are playing us against each other. They're telling the Arabs about, how America is the great devil and all this stuff. And then we go in because the Jays have all the money in the world and they're funding both sides, okay? And the U.S. has been the bully for Zionist State of Israel since the inception in 1948. We have literally done their bidding ever since. Wake up. Your stupid patriotism is stupid. There were okay. In fact, if you think back, these celebrations were organized by television. Come to think of, as was the scenario for the intervention, which was simply copied pasted from past historical events. Think back to Sudan and the Save Darfur Coalition, to Kosovo and the Balkans and Somalia and Grenada and the Falkland Islands. Television acted as a surrogate facilitator of a largest patriotic celebration in history, as they were called. As Keith Harmon Snow reports for Global Research on February 7th, 2007, in reference to Sudan Britain-inspired conflict, quote, first, create instability and chaos that gives the appearance of Arabs fighting Africans. That is legit the playbook. They act like, oh, Arab terrorist groups did thus and so. We've got to go save these people. When it was Mossad, probably, or MI6, same difference, CIA. They are all hand in glove. They are all butt buddies. They are all the same entity. Okay. They create the chaos that gives the appearance of Arabs fighting Africans. It's always those other people over there killing each other. Second, wage a media campaign that focuses a laser beam of public attention on the rising instability. Third, whip up public opinion and fury among highly manipulated Western population who will, quite literally, believe anything. Fourth, make sure the devil, this time it's the Janjaweed, comes on horseback. This latter point underscores the tight, unwavering narrative of good versus evil. Fifth, demonize the, quote, enemy. Read dirty Arabs. And their partners, Chinese oil companies and Russian arms dealers. And it's always Russia, 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 or China, China, China. Have you ever listened to Putin? The man makes more sense than any American politician I've literally ever heard. And he tells it like what the American media is not going to say, he will say. You would do well to sit and listen to Putin. I'm not saying he's like the greatest leader of all time. Far from it. He's just as bad as all these other fuckers. But at least he tells the truth about America to his citizens. Sixth, send the Christian soldiers and their, quote, humanitarian armies onward. Enter. Save Darfur, and voila, a movement is born. Seventh, continue to chip away the power of the enemy by chipping away at their credibility. 8, under the banners of high moral approbation and with full support of a deeply caring Western public, overthrow the malevolent forces of Islam and the Orient and instill a benevolent, peace-loving, pro-democracy government. Last, wipe away the sanctions no longer needed and bring much-needed, quote, development to another backward country. And there you have it. Yet another civilizing mission to conquer those barbaric Arab hordes and those starving, helpless, uneducated, diseased, AIDS-infested tribal Africans. End quote. Amen. Which AIDS doesn't exist. And I tried to order a book from Amazon. I paid $175 for this book. It was used, and it never came to me. There's just certain information that they don't want you to have. But just like every other virus, AIDS is a hoax. And I know I probably sound crazy, but guess what? The truth sounds crazy in an empire of lies. And if you haven't realized that you live in an empire of lies by now, turn this off. Go do something else. You're unreachable. Anyway, this example shows the efficiency with which television can organize public opinion on behalf of foreign military crusades that advance the cause of world government, without even explicitly stating that world government or one world company is the goal. Remember, it was the television that told you what you were celebrating and the why you must feel proud to be an American, or at least be envious of others who are American. This doesn't apply solely to the world of politics. Think back to Spain's 2010, quote, glorious World Football Cup victory. The celebration wouldn't have been the same without the TV reaffirming our right to feel, quote, proud. I wonder how proud they feel now, knowing that, like, I don't know, 50,000 Mauritanians or whatever Africans just came over on boats on their shores. Literally, this is like yesterday or the day before. Spain has been invaded by Africans, and they're not doing shit about it. The police and the military were told to stand down by the president. Yet another evil shitlord globalist world leader of a country selling out his citizens because the Zionists want them to. Because let me tell you, you need to go look up Barbara Specter. She worked for the Tavistock Institute, and she said that the West has not quite yet learned to be multicultural. But we're in the throes of that change, and that she is proud to be part. Her Zionist ass is proud to be a part of that change. The West is being invaded by third world brainless drones, okay? They don't have the IQ enough to even form a civilization, but yet we're going to bring them in as workers? No. Get them the fuck out of here. What you might not have realized because you were not told this little unimportant fact is that prior to media's, quote, humanitarian propaganda campaigns, neither Somalia nor Kosovo, and certainly not Sudan, figured prominently among the typical Americans' concerns. In fact, over 85% of American public could not find Sudan on the world map. The same could be said for Somalia and certainly Kosovo, not to mention Iraq prior to Desert Storm invasion in 1991. 7% of Americans didn't know where Iraq was on the map and had no idea who Saddam Hussein was until CNN's diligent, relentless effort to indoctrinate the American public made those military campaigns possible. And that was all at the behest of the Shmayanists, because they all want all that land over there, because they feel like God promised it to them 6,000 years ago, but they're all atheists and they don't even believe in God. Nevertheless, what's absolutely mind-boggling is that the public never questioned any of it. Instead, people chose to participate in the celebration, either directly lining the streets and waving U.S. flags through national television newscasts. By the end of 2010, more than 1.5 million innocent Iraqis are dead, along with Saddam Hussein, 5,000 plus American troops, and unknown tens of thousands maimed for life who are, quote, liberating the country on behalf of British Petroleum, Royal Dutch Shell, Halliburton, Blackwater, Chase Manhattan Bank, Bank of America, Citigroup, and an unending plethora of multinational corporations, all vying for a piece of an Iraqi sweepstakes and wealth. Hi, Mom. Do you think Afghanistan is any different? Another war, another dollar, another list of unsavory statistics. Between Afghanistan and Iraq, tens of thousands of dead children, hundreds of thousands maimed for life. And for whom did we fight? Israel. I'll give you a hint. U.S. government overthrew the filthy Taliban only to replace them with one of the most corrupt leaders the world has ever seen, Hamid Karzai, a major drug trafficker in bed with the same unsavory forces we came to fight against. Hi, Mom. Are we still number one? Number one in this stupidity is what we are. So how do you feel now? This is what you celebrated. And believe me, there is no difference between the jackbooted Nazi thugs from the 1930s and the jackbooted Democratic liberators from 2011. Without even realizing it, you became part of a mob, a fascist mob organized entirely by the television. Well, no, it was organized entirely by Shmayanists, but the television is what was used to brainwash you. Still don't believe me? Have you traveled to the United States recently? Oh my God, nightmare. I am old enough to remember flying before 2001. And my dad used to travel for his job a lot. We would go to the airport. We would walk in the front. We'd go to the ticket counter. We would go walk through with Daddy. We'd get on the train because I live in an Atlanta suburb. Atlanta has one of the biggest airports in the world. So there are like subway trains that go under it to take you from one terminal to the next. They would allow us, we would get to go all the way to the boarding area with my dad. We did this multiple times. And then I flew to Miami. I flew to LA. I flew to Aruba. I flew to a few places before 2001. And you used to just walk into the airport, go up to the ticket desk, and then walk on to your terminal. There wasn't all this shaking down, this x-ray vision, seeing through every cavity of your body. There was none of that. And it's actually completely unconstitutional what they're doing at these airports. Okay, have you traveled to the United States recently? The airport personnel, part of the Homeland Security Department, are the same jackbooted Nazi goons who dragged little old Jewish ladies out of their homes and beat them to death with rifle butt for pleasure and in the name of security. Which is kind of a tall tale, but whatever. About the old Jewish ladies, not the jackboot thugs at the TSA. While you, the model citizen, stood and stands idly by, speechless and helpless, did it ever occur to you to step in and help? No, because you and your fellow citizens have been brainwashed by television to never question authority, no matter how shocking and anti-humane their behavior might be. Or do you really think you became this way on your own? Think back 30 years. Did people behave this way towards their fellow men? Hardly, right? So what happened? Along the way, somewhere, we lost our consciousness. Consciousness is something we each develop to the degree we feel and think for ourselves. Insofar as we merely accept the emotional and intellectual commonplaces of others, we remain dead. Let's put it this way. The advent and mass dissemination of television technology has rendered the Nazi model for a fascist society obsolete. It has provided a better, more subtle, and more powerful means of social control than the organized terror of the Nazi state, end quote. To most people, this may sound absolutely shocking. After all, what does an innocent celebration of democracy or football victory have to do with Nazism, right? This is a new header. The fascist concept of man. Investigative journalist Lonnie Wolf succinctly tells the story, quote, the Nazi state was created by the same oligarchical, financial, and political interests who today control what we call the mass media and television. Forget about whatever stories you have seen on television about how Hitler came to power. His path to power was cleared by the same oligarchs who employ the brainwashers that program your television. The Jays. And Hitler was also a Jay himself. So, over a period of years following the First World War, Germany was brutalized by the economic policy of this international elite. Hitler's Nazis were funded and promoted as a political option, and then steered into power in 1932 and 1933. Once in power, the Nazis maintained their hold through the use of terror as a part of mass brainwashing. In many ways, it were proper to view the Nazi period as an experiment in methods of mass brainwashing and social control. At the root of this experiment was the desire to create a new world order based on reversing a fundamental premise of Western Christian civilization, that man is created as a higher and distinct species from animals, created in the image of the living God, living God by divine grace imparted the divine spark of reason, end quote. What makes man human is our power of reason. The only thing greater than life is the power of the human mind. This is how mankind is measured. What separates us from animals is our ability to discover universal physical principles. It allows us to innovate, which subsequently improves the lives of people. Development of mankind and the development of the power of the individual and the nation depends upon scientific developments, upon seeking and discovering the truth as our highest goal. That's my highest goal, thus perfecting our existence. Truth always lies in the higher order of processes. True sovereignty lies not in popular opinion, but in the creative powers of the individual human mind. So, it's a moral problem of mankind's destiny. As Lyndon LaRoche often stated, quote, every generation must advance beyond that of the preceding generation, and that hope that will happen should be what's on the mind of the person who is dying of old age, that their life has meant something because it laid the foundation for a better life than they knew, end quote. There is a fundamental clash of ideals. Those who measure up to a Renaissance view of a man and those who see themselves by birthright above other men. The Jays. Who see mankind as an animal or a goy whose worst impulses must be repressed by the state. This is the view of the, quote, Enlightenment movement. And in its extreme form, the fascist state, quote, for mass brainwashing to work, it must attack the Renaissance view of man, end quote. For no person with a strong moral compass seeking truth can be brainwashed. Until we can bring mankind into a real age of reason, into the age of progress and human knowledge, history will be shaped in actuality, but not by the wills of masses of humanity, but by the mere handfuls who, for the purposes of good or evil, steer the fate of mankind generally as herds of cows are still steered to and from the pasture, and occasionally also to the slaughterhouse. And that is where we are headed. Okay? These Noahide laws are coming. And if you are found guilty of blasphemy or idolatry, if you don't worship their God who is Yahweh, all you Christians out there praying to Yahweh, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, this pisses me off so bad. Because y'all will sit here, you Yahwehs will sit here and judge Christians who believe in Jesus, that he is the way, the truth, and the life. But yet, you still venerate the name of Yahweh, who's not the Most High, who is not Jesus' father. Wake up. Freudian mass brainwashing is the next header. Freudian mass brainwashing. As much as it may surprise many, Nazi Germany was an experiment in Freudian mass psychology. What it means is that both Freud and the Nazis shared the belief system of man as a sinful beast who is allowed to exist under strictly imposed laws. Man is not made in the image of the living God, says Freud. Man has made God in his image for the purpose of easing the pain of his existence. Freud called past intellectuals, quote, infantile for their defense of religious doctrine. Quote, we shall tell ourselves that it were very nice if there were a God who created the world and was a benevolent providence, yet you defend the religious illusion with all your might. If it becomes discredited, and indeed the threat to it is great enough, when your world collapses, there is nothing left for you but despair of everything, of civilization, of the future of mankind. From that bondage we are free. Since we are prepared to renounce a good part of our infantile wishes, we can bear it if a few of our expectations turn out to be illusions, end quote. This motherfucker was a pedo, okay? He was a sexual deviant and a sick fuck. Please excuse my language. But, like, he was a godless, probably a godless sodomite, allegedly. But all of psychology is based on him and his crazy ideas. Freudian psychology, as preached by either Freud or by neo-Freudians like Carl Jung, became all the rage in the 1920s. It was promoted into the popular culture through the mass media of its day, newspaper and magazine articles. Quote, its morally insane system of id, ego, and superego became part of the popular culture, as did its belief of that creativity stems from sexual drives. See what I'm saying? He was a sex maniac, and he acted like, sons wanted to F their mothers, and same with the daughter. Like, he was a sick, twisted fuck, okay? Freud was a sicko. One of the key elements of Freud's work on mass psychology stems from the psychology of the crowd of the French psychologist Gustave Le Bon, who claimed that man regressed into a primitive mental state as part of a crowd. Quote, people in a crowd lose their inhibitions and moral standards and become highly emotional, end quote. Le Bon describes this as a return to man's primitive nature. Quote, man, says Le Bon, quote, has returned to his animal roots, end quote. This is what mass mobilization of people is all about. The victory parade is just one example of this phenomenon. The notion that all good citizens should rally around the flag to attack is in itself just another form of social dictate. But there is another side effect to this development. Quote, while he has become at once more primitive, more animal-like, and infantile, mass man, the man in the crowd, also has a heightened sense of power, while his individual responsibility for action, y'all, I'm sweating my ass off, for action is a key factor in all moral judgment diminishes, end quote. On the other hand, far from accepting that everything should be directed toward a common purpose, Freud and Le Bon ignore the right of minds to follow their own curiosity wherever it may lead. After all, curiosity is insubordination in its purest form, an attitude that in today's United States would draw you a prison term for anti-American activity. The heritage of Western Christian civilization defends the freedom of the individual mind against the coercion of mass culture, mass propaganda, or mass mobilization. Quote, it is just as impossible to do without control of the masses by a majority as it is to dispense with coercion and the work of civilization, end quote. Freud writes in his 1927 Attack on Religion, The Future of an Illusion, quote, for the masses are lazy and unintelligent, end quote. That's true. Such thoughts are not far separated from the writings of Hitler. They form the core of Nazi thinking. Long before Hitler published Mein Kampf, Freud, in his Mass Psychology, wrote about a leadership principle around which the Nazi state was organized. Quote, any mass, be it a nation or a randomly created group, must have a leader, end quote. He wrote, adding, quote, someone who gives it its ideal its I ideal or value. The leader becomes the individual member's common I ideal and takes over all his critical faculties, just as the hypnotized individual surrenders his self-determination to the hypnotizer. It is the leader, says Freud, who provides the common bond for a mass of people. Their common attachment to the leader enables each member to identify with each other, giving form and direction to the mass, end quote. And all you Trumpians out here, he's a fucking demon, okay? Everybody brainwashed into this left-right paradigm. Wake up, bro. It doesn't, like, you, it's like, smoking or non, and then somebody says yes, okay? It's like, there are more, like, it's crazy to me how you people think that you have to fit into either a left or right grouping. Like, how about neither? How about neither? Was Hitler a Freudian? Quote, it is known that Hitler read Le Bon, writes Lonnie Wolf in his piece on, quote, the making of a fascist society, end quote. It cannot be established that he read Freud, especially mass psychology, but it is clear that those who put Hitler in power, Schmeinists, and those who steered his movement read Freud, as did most of the ruling elite of the day. It was they who were promoting the Freudian craze and its propaganda throughout the world, end quote. And I think on that I'm going to stop because the dog wants to go out, and I don't know why it's so hot in here. Maybe I'm having a hot flash. I don't know. But I'm literally stroking out here. So anyways, I hope you guys are learning something. And I hope that it is, I hope I'm not insulting anyone. I just get very passionate and I get very upset and angry because I don't understand how people can be so oblivious and so gullible. You know what I mean? Like, how? And the only thing that I can think of is your lack of belief in Christ. The Holy Spirit, or the Spirit of Truth, has never left me. And I've done some real dumb shit in my life, and I should probably be dead. But praise be to God and my angels that have protected me. I'm still here to scream into the void and warn the people death is coming. Okay? And it just is, because our country is merging with the Zionist state of Israel. They are white supremacists. They hate you. They want us all dead. They want their 15-minute cities and their robots and, you know, their all that crap, the Terminator, all of that crap. It was all predictive programming to make you accept this dystopian, anti-Christ world that they want to create, which the creator, the father, I hope he will never allow it. I hope he comes and like destroys all these evil shitlords. Anyways, I love you. I hope that you found this informative. I hope that my ranting didn't upset too many people. But like, really, at the end of the day, I don't care if you're upset. I just want you to know what the facts are, okay? We're looking for the truth here. We're not looking to be disillusioned. We don't give a fuck what the football score was or the baseball score was. We don't care who wore what to the Emmys or the Grammys or the whatever. We don't care who has the #1 hit single. We don't care. That's not reality, okay? That's a construct that is entertaining you into oblivion. Wake up. Snap out of it. Anyways, I love you guys.